The test of presence, why your stillness is everything. When a woman opens up to you about her struggles, her stress, or her bad day, most men make a fatal mistake right out of the gate. They listen to the words, but they miss the music. They think they are being presented with a logistical puzzle, a series of bugs in her life that need to be debugged. You see her frustration, and your natural instinct as a man kicks in. You want to provide a solution, fix the leak, and move on to the next task. But you have to understand that in that moment, she isn't handing you a set of blueprints. She is handing you an emotional weight. She is metaphorically leaning her entire body weight against you to see if you will stand tall or if you will buckle and collapse under the pressure. This is the test of presence, and it is the most common hurdle men trip over in modern relationships. The reason most men fail this test is because they let the storm inside her create a storm inside them. You see her upset, and it makes you uncomfortable. You feel a sense of urgency to make the discomfort go away, so you start bailing water. You grab your logic bucket and start throwing facts at her feelings. You say things like, well, if your boss is mean, just quit. Or, you're overreacting. It's not that bad. You think you're being helpful, but to her, it looks like panic. It looks like you are so bothered by her emotions that you're desperate to shut them down just so you can feel better. By trying to fix her, you are actually showing her that you aren't strong enough to sit in the fire with her. You're telling her that her emotional world is too much for you to handle, which immediately kills her sense of safety and eventually her respect for you. You have to realize that this moment is rarely about your IQ or your ability to find a clever shortcut to her problems. It is a raw, primal assessment of your masculine grounding. She is gauging your internal temperature. She wants to know if you are a leaf in the wind, someone who gets blown around by her moods, her anger, or her tears, or if you are the anchor at the bottom of the ocean that remains unmoved while the waves crash above. When a woman is in the middle of an emotional hurricane, she doesn't need another piece of debris flying around with her. She needs something solid to grab onto. She is looking for the unshakable man. She wants to see if your frame is strong enough to contain her chaos without you becoming a part of it yourself. This is exactly where the ancient power of Stoicism becomes your ultimate competitive advantage. There is a massive misconception that Stoicism means being a cold, unfeeling robot or a wall of stone that doesn't care. That couldn't be further from the truth. Real Stoic presence is about the gap between a stimulus and your response. It's about being fully there, looking her in the eye, feeling the weight of her words, and hearing the pain in her voice without letting that energy penetrate your core. It is the ability to respond from a position of absolute centered strength instead of reacting from a place of defensive fear. When you can sit there, breathe, and hold the line while she unloads her world onto you, you aren't just listening, you are proving your worth as a leader and a partner. You are showing her that no matter how loud the world gets, you are the one thing she can count on to never move. Frame over fix. Why your logic is failing you. The single most common trap that kills attraction and creates distance in a relationship is what I call solution mode. It usually starts with the best of intentions. Your woman comes to you, visibly upset, and tells you about a massive betrayal by a close friend or a stressful situation at work. Because you care about her and because your masculine brain is wired to optimize and solve, you immediately switch into engineer mode. You start drafting a 3-step plan to cut that friend off, or you offer a tactical strategy to handle her boss. You think you're being her hero. You think you're being helpful, logical, and supportive. But while you're busy building a bridge to a solution, she feels like you're just trying to get her to stop talking. To her, your quick fixes don't feel like support. They feel like a dismissal. It feels as if her emotions are an annoyance that you're trying to debug and delete so you can get back to your own peace and quiet. When you rush to fix her, you are inadvertently sending a very weak message. I cannot handle the way you feel right now, so I need to change your reality as fast as possible. You are essentially telling her that her feelings are a problem to be disposed of rather than an experience to be shared. You have to realize that in these moments, she doesn't want a therapist, a consultant, or a life coach. She wants a rock. She wants a man who is so internally secure that her emotional output doesn't move him or scare him. This is the essence of frame. Your frame is your internal world. It is the lens through which you see reality. If your frame is strong, her storm doesn't become your storm. If your frame is weak, you get sucked into her chaos and start panicking right along with her. By jumping straight into solution mode, you are surrendering your high ground. You are letting her emotional state dictate your actions, which proves to her that you aren't actually in control. Think back to the legendary Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius. He spent years on the front lines of war, dealing with a literal plague, political betrayals, and an empire on the brink of collapse. Yet, if you read his writings, you see a man whose internal core remained untouched by the external madness. He understood that while he couldn't control the world around him, he had absolute authority over his own mind. When your woman brings her storm to you, you must adopt that same imperial mindset. You are the observer, not the victim of the weather. The moment you jump into the trenches to fight her battles or try to force her to feel better through logic, you've lost. You've become reactive. You've let her pull you out of your masculine center and into her feminine whirlwind. You aren't helping her by joining her in the trench. You help her by standing on the edge and showing her that the ground is still solid. True masculine power in these moments is found in the ability to stand still. It is the strength to let her speak, let her cry, and let her vent without you feeling the need to do anything. This silence isn't an absence of care, it is the ultimate form of emotional discipline. It shows her that you are listening with such intensity and such security that you don't need to bark out orders or offer unsolicited advice to feel relevant. You are holding the space for her. You are letting her emotions flow through the environment without letting them stick to you. When you hold your frame this way, she eventually burns through that emotional energy and looks up to see that you are still there, unbothered and unshaken. That is when she feels truly safe. That is when she respects you. She realizes she can't knock you off balance, and there is nothing more attractive to a woman than a man who is the master of his own internal state. Listen without losing yourself, the power of the mountain. To lead in a relationship, you must understand a fundamental truth. A woman's emotional world is fluid, and it is designed to be that way. Her feelings can shift like the weather, bright and sunny one moment, a Category 5 hurricane the next. This isn't a flaw, it is her nature. However, the trap most men fall into is thinking they need to follow her down into every one of those emotional rabbit holes. They think that being a good partner means they have to feel exactly what she's feeling. If she's stressed about work, they get stressed about her work. If she's angry at her sister, they start getting angry too. This is a catastrophic mistake. You are confusing empathy with emotional entanglement. And the moment you let her chaos become your chaos, you have effectively surrendered your masculinity. You have stopped being her leader and started being her emotional twin. And let's be clear, she doesn't need a twin. She needs a foundation. When you start taking on her stress and absorbing her anger, you aren't helping her. You're just adding more weight to a sinking ship. Suddenly, instead of one person dealing with a storm, there are two people drowning in it. You lose your perspective, you lose your cool, and most importantly, you lose your peace. The great Stoic Seneca once said that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And that is exactly what happens when you over-identify with her pain. You begin to live in an imaginary world of problems that aren't even yours. You abandon your own center of gravity to orbit her mood. This is the definition of weakness dressed up as caring. If you become an emotional sponge that soaks up every drop of her frustration, she will eventually stop seeing you as a source of strength. Why would she look to you for stability when you're just as shaken up as she is? The visual you need to keep in your mind is the mountain and the water. Imagine a massive, ancient mountain rising out of the sea. The water is wild, unpredictable, and thrashing. Sometimes the waves are gentle, and sometimes they are violent, crashing against the base of the mountain with everything they've got. But the mountain doesn't flinch. It doesn't try to stop the waves, and it doesn't try to change the temperature of the water. It just stands there, rooted deep in the earth, immovable and silent. The water can be as chaotic as it wants, but it will never, ever move the mountain. In your relationship, you are the mountain. She is the water. She needs to know deep in her bones that she can crash against you with her loudest screams and her heaviest tears, and you won't move an inch. You are the one constant in her shifting reality. If you fail to do this, if you let yourself become the reflection in the water, you are constantly changing shape based on how she moves. If she's choppy, you're distorted. If she's calm, you're still. You are no longer your own man. You are just a reaction to her. Women have a sixth sense for this kind of instability. The moment she senses that her emotions can knock you off your feet, she loses her sense of safety. She begins to realize that you aren't actually strong enough to protect her from the world because you can't even protect yourself from a bad mood. She will test your strength over and over again, not because she wants to break you, but because she desperately needs to know that you cannot be broken. By listening without losing yourself, you are proving that you are a man who can hold the weight of the world without crumbling. That is the kind of strength she craves, and that is the kind of man she will never leave. Emotional control is your real power, mastering the remote control of your manhood. When we talk about masculine power, most men immediately think of the external markers, the size of their bank account, the cars they drive, or how much weight they can move in the gym. While those things have their place, they are nothing compared to your real greatest asset, your composure. In the heat of an emotional conflict, your value is measured by one thing: your ability to stay cool while the world around you is burning. You have to understand that women are biologically wired to be experts at reading emotional signals. They instinctively poke, prod, and test your boundaries, not necessarily to be mean, but to find out where your breaking point is. They are subconsciously asking, if life gets hard, will this man break? If I get intense, will he fold? If she can make you blow up in anger, cause you to shut down in a silent pout, or trick you into over explaining and defending yourself like a child caught in a lie, she has won. In that moment, you haven't just lost an argument, you have handed her the remote control to your manhood. You've shown her that she can press a button and get a reaction out of you whenever she wants. The absolute pinnacle of masculine power is found in the pause, that tiny, crucial window of time between her emotional outburst and your response. This is where most men fail. Most men are reactive. They are like a pinball that bounces around wherever the flippers send them. When she yells, they yell. When she cries, they panic. But a man who has mastered himself understands that he doesn't have to mirror her energy. When things get messy and the air gets thick with tension, a stoic doesn't become soft, blurry, or weak. He becomes sharper. He becomes more focused. While she is swirling in emotion, you should be the calmest person in the room. This isn't about being cold or winning a fight. It's about maintaining the integrity of your own mind. If you lose your temper, you've lost your frame. If you start stuttering and apologizing for things you didn't do just to keep the peace, you've lost your respect. Real power is sitting in that tension, maintaining steady eye contact and refusing to flinch. You need to visualize your emotional control as the steering wheel of the relationship. Every time you react impulsively or let your emotions take the lead, you are letting go of that wheel. A woman does not actually want to be the one holding the wheel in a relationship. It's exhausting and goes against her natural desire to feel protected and led. However, she will absolutely grab that wheel and try to steer if she senses that you are too unstable, too reactive, or too emotional to do it yourself. She would rather drive the car herself than let a nervous, shaking driver take her off a cliff. When she brings her intensity to you and realizes that it cannot shake your center, something primal shifts inside her. Her respect for you hits a level that logic simply cannot explain. She realizes she is with a man who is bigger than her moods, bigger than the drama, and bigger than the chaos of life. Mastering this level of control requires a daily commitment to internal discipline. It means choosing to breathe when your heart rate starts to climb. It means choosing silence over a snappy, defensive comeback. It means realizing that her emotional state is a temporary weather pattern, but your character is the climate. When you refuse to be triggered, you are demonstrating that you are the master of your own internal kingdom. You are showing her that your peace is not for sale, and that no one, not even her, has the power to make you act out of character. This is the unshakable man. When she finally hits that wall of your composure and realizes it won't crack, her anxiety begins to melt away. She stops poking because she finally found the boundary she was looking for. She stops prodding because she finally feels safe in the shadow of a man who is truly in control of himself. That is the moment you stop being just another guy she's dating and become the man she truly admires. Kill the need for validation. Stop performing and start standing. One of the most invisible yet toxic habits men bring into their relationships is the constant, desperate need for emotional validation. Most men don't even realize they're doing it. They listen to a woman vent not because they are genuinely present, but because they are performing the role of the supportive boyfriend. They are waiting for that gold star, that moment where she says, "Thank you for being such a good listener," or "I'm so glad I have a man who understands me." They have turned a moment of connection into a transaction. When you listen just to be praised for listening, you aren't being a rock, you're being a performer. You are holding your breath, waiting for her to give you permission to feel good about yourself. This is the ultimate nice guy trap, and it is a massive turnoff because it signals to her that your self worth is entirely dependent on her current mood. If she's happy with you, you're a king. If she's upset, you're a wreck. That kind of instability is the literal death of attraction. The reason so many men fall into this is a deep seated fear of conflict. They are terrified that if they don't agree with every word she says, or if they don't mirror her emotional intensity, she might withdraw her affection. They think that by being a yes man, they are keeping the peace, but they are actually killing the respect. When you agree with things you don't believe in just to avoid a frown, you are telling her that your integrity is for sale. You are showing her that you can be bought for the low price of a momentary smile. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, had a radical solution for this. He taught that we should be perfectly content to be thought of as clueless or foolish by others, as long as we are staying true to our own principles. In a relationship, this means that if she's in the middle of a tantrum and she calls you cold or heartless because you refuse to join her in the chaos, you have to be okay with that. You have to let her think whatever she wants in that moment without rushing to defend your character or prove how nice you are. You must stop chasing her emotional good job stamp. When you beg for her approval, whether through over explaining your intentions or getting defensive when she's upset, you are effectively telling her that she is the judge and you are the defendant. You are handing her the power to define who you are. But a man who is grounded in his own value doesn't need a thank you to stay steady. He doesn't need her to acknowledge his strength for it to be real. Think about it. If you only stay calm because you want her to notice how calm you aren't actually calm. You're just acting. Real stoic power comes from the fact that your internal state is not up for debate. You listen because it is the right thing to do, as a man of character, not because you're trying to earn points in a relationship scoreboard. The irony is that the moment you truly stop needing her validation is the exact moment she starts giving it freely. When she realizes that she can't manipulate your behavior with a mood swing and that she can't make you dance for her approval, you suddenly become the prize. You become a rare commodity, a man who is self validated and self contained. She realizes that your presence is a gift you give, not a bribe you pay to keep her from leaving. This creates a massive amount of respect because it shows her that you are led by your own internal compass, not by her fluctuating emotions. You aren't a puppy looking for a pat on the head. You are a man standing on his own 2 feet, immovable and secure. When you kill the need for her to see your value, she finally starts to see it. Her emotions are not your responsibility. Mastering the art of caring without carrying. The fastest way to lose your masculinity, your peace of mind, and your partner's respect all at once is to buy into the lie that you are responsible for her emotional state. Many men believe that if their woman is sad, angry, or stressed, it is their personal duty to fix that feeling and bring her back to happiness. They think they are being a hero, but in reality, they are becoming a puppet. The moment you start walking on eggshells, filtering your words, and obsessively managing your behavior just to trigger a negative reaction from her, you have surrendered your lead. You are no longer acting out of your own values. You are reacting to her moods. This creates a toxic dynamic where she becomes the weather and you become a kite, tossed around by every gust of her emotion. You have to realize that her emotions belong to her and your response belongs to you. This distinction is the foundation of a healthy, high value masculine frame. To be a truly grounded man, you must learn how to care about her without carrying her weight. Think about the difference between a lifeguard and a person who is also drowning. A lifeguard cares deeply about the person in the water, but he doesn't jump in and let them pull him under. He stays on the stand, or he swims out with a buoy, keeping his own head above water so he can actually be of use. If you absorb her stress and take it on as your own, you aren't helping her. You're just doubling the amount of stress in the room. Stoicism teaches us the middle path. On one side, you have the cold wall, the man who is distant, dismissive, and ignores her feelings entirely.